Hello and welcome to the FSF podcast. I am Tim. I am your host. And as a reminder, this is the show that is made by nerds for nerds. So welcome to our under construction nerdery. That's why we're all blurred out. You don't want to see all that mess. Anyway, our guest today is a screenwriter. How about that? She's a screenwriter, a producer, she's an animation editor. She's also a graphic novelist and you've seen her work on shows like Star Trek Prodigy, Star Wars Forces of Destiny, The Legend of Vox Machina, and there's a whole list of other things that are attached there. And her graphic novel Primer was very well received in the DC Comics universe and has had multiple printings. So I am excited to welcome Jennifer Muro to the FSF podcast. Welcome to the Insanity, Jennifer.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Very excited.
Yeah, I am excited to have you here. It's always kind of neat when I see somebody who's a friend of a guest that we've had on the show previously, or somehow connected to a guest that we've had on the show previously. And I'm always like, and then I look at their resume and I'm like, okay, they're cool too. I got to talk with them. And that's how I got to you, is that I was looking at, because we were talking with Joshua Pruitt to have him back on the show for the fourth time. We love Joshua. Yeah, he's a good dude. And one of the best dudes out there. Absolutely love him. Yeah. And we are looking at having him back on the show. We have a yearly with Josh, is how it's our yearly checkup with Josh.
Nice.
And so it's time for our yearly with Josh. And we were looking at that, and there was I was looking back through something, and there was a mention of Onyx Equinox, and that's how your name came into the equation. And I was like, well, Jennifer Muro, who's that? Oh, and look at all the cool things Jennifer has done. And I'm like, and added her to list of people I need to talk to.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, no, Josh is my go-to guy. Anytime I'm running something, I'm like, sometimes he's busy, but I want Josh there at all times in my writer's room as much as humanly possible. I tried to get him on my last thing, but he was on Phineas and Ferb. So I'm like, can't always win, but I have brought him along the way as much as I can, because he is a rock star in the writer's room.
Oh, for sure.
100%.
Yeah, I absolutely love Josh. He's a good dude, and he's such a cool level of nerdy.
Oh my God!
So yeah, he has nerd levels that I have hopes to reach one day. So
you need a horror expert. He's the horror guy.
Oh, for sure, right? Yeah,
and Doctor Who, but absolutely horror too. Like
absolutely
of amazing epic levels. So I'm glad you found me through him.
Me too. All right, so our first question for you, Jennifer, it's a question we like to ask every single guest who comes on the show, because I like to know what makes people tick, why they do the things they do, why they get involved in the things they get involved in. And I'm also a massive nerd, and origin stories are just really cool. So in the origin story of Jennifer, what got you here? What made you decide that I want to be a writer, producer, animator?
My gosh. I mean, boy, that starts a long time ago. I think it started when I was a kid. I played Dungeon when I was a kid, and I played Zork when I was a kid. And thanks to my dad, he introduced me to those things. And science, Carl Sagan's Cosmos, it was an influence on me as a kid. And then as I got older in high school, I went to a new high school senior year, and I found a group of guys who played Dungeons and Dragons, and they dragged me into that world, and my life changed ever since then. So, and then it just snowballed from there. And in 87, I guess, what I think it was, when TNG came on the air, TNG influenced me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the original trilogy of Star Wars, and then Jurassic Park came out in 93, and I think that's when it was almost impossible to leave Long Island as a first generation Italian American girl to leave New York and go to California and make movies was like me going to the moon. So the fact that I saw Jurassic Park, I was like, I want to do this, and I want to go to USC, and I want to be Spielberg, or I want to be a part of those movies that they made. That's when the turn happened, and I made it happen somehow by miracle and luck and help and by the grace of I don't know what, but ever since then. And also in the 90s were very influential. Batman the Animated Series and a lot of the Warner Brothers animation was hugely influential. So I was just doomed to want to do this stuff, because there was some great stuff in the 80s and 90s. So it was the best time for that stuff. And then I got here, and and then it just, the rest is history, I guess, sort of.
Sure. No, I get that. So I think for many people who I've talked to in the past, when they're getting their feet wet, like you talked about coming from Long Island to LA, and it might as well have been the moon.
Yeah.
And so I think that also when you're going through that, from everyone that I have talked to, there's also the stage of realization that I can do this. I can be this person. So for you, when was that moment? When was that moment when you said, you know what? I'm here. I can do this.
I mean, I think USC was really hard for me because I came from such a small community and such a small, like, kind of sheltered upbringing. To go to like USC from where I was like
Mm-hmm.
so overwhelming. So college was really hard for me, but I got through it. I had friends that helped. I got my first gig at the Nick on Sunset building for Nickelodeon way back when. It was the Nick Cannon show, was a live action show. That was my first gig, and I got a
Okay.
shot. And then it got canceled like fairly immediately, like a few months in. And then they needed help in the Burbank office in the animated space. And that's when, once I got that gig, I knew. I mean, unless you're asking like from college, like from going to college, I knew I could do it. My mom worked for Hofstra University, and there was like a tuition
Okay.
exchange program. It never paid off, by the way, like, but it got me there. It never really quite worked, but it got my mother to like let me do it. So that was when I
Right.
knew I could do it. That was the first step. Then I made it, because I actually came back to New York for a year in 2001, and I was in a band, in a rock band in New York. And then September 11th happened and everything dried up, so I went back to LA. And then when I got the Burbank Nick gig, then I was unstoppable, and I was like editing and writing at the same time and trying to sell shows and writing for other networks while
Mm-hmm.
I was at Nickelodeon. And I had so much energy. Thank God I had energy at the time to build my career, because now that energy is so gone. But I had a
Yeah.
lot of it for like 2 decades. So very lucky about
There you
that. So there
go.
were stages of those, moments. There was a few moments in there.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Energy. What energy? What's that? I don't.
Ugh.
Oh, that's the things my kids have. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, that's the young people have it these days.
Yeah. Yeah. It isn't me. It isn't me. All right. No, that's a great answer. I think that's probably pretty on par with a lot of the other people we've had on the show, because there's moments of realization. It's not always one collective moment, but
Right.
that moment builds up, and then it becomes that one moment. It's not just rarely, should I say, is it ever where somebody goes, I got this job, I did this one thing, and I knew I was good, and I knew, but
Oh, yeah, that's tough. Honestly, I have to say that it came later in my career, which is the most fulfilling thing would have been is Star Trek Prodigy, because it was such an amazing team, and Star Trek meant so
mhm.
much to me. And our season, I feel like, was so successful in its execution. I don't know about ratings or not, but in its execution, it was so successful that I felt like if I didn't do anything else, I did that.
There you
And that
go.
was definitive.
Well, I'll tell you the same thing I told Aaron Waltke about Prodigy. Thank you for making Star Trek Prodigy, because that was my gateway drug into Star Trek that got me away. Not that it ever got me away from Star Wars. I'm Star Wars through and through. Star Wars is life. But I had always kind of looked down my nose at Star Trek and was like, oh, it's boring. It's this, it's that. So Star Trek Prodigy led me to Lower Decks, which led me to Strange New Worlds, which led me to TNG, to other things.
Oh,
So
wow.
if it had not been for your show, I would not consider myself a Star Trek fan.
Wow, that's amazing. I have not heard that from someone before. That's really cool.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it was my gateway drug. So
Yay, gateway.
it's the one time where you can use that expression and not feel bad about saying, "Oh, it was a gateway drug." But
No,
anyway,
it's a good drug.
it was a good gateway. All right, but let's take a moment. Let's talk about your graphic novel. Now I'm
Sure.
going to include a link down below for everybody to be able to look up Primer and everything about it, and they can order themselves a copy. Now, and that'll be down in the show notes down below. Now, it's about a teenage girl. She's a superhero. Wondering if you could take a moment and tell our audience about the story. Tell us about the hero, how the story came to be, and why people should be reading it.
Well, I mean, the story is about a girl named Ashley Rayburn who is is in the foster system. She gets adopted at 12 years old. She's about to turn 13. She has had a troubled past. Her dad was like in jail, and she doesn't know who her mom is. And she expresses herself through artwork and graffiti and like street art. And she gets taken in by a couple, and one is a scientist, and Yuka, and Kitsch is the dad, and he's kind of like a bohemian, like stay-at-home dad in a way, and he happens to be an artist, and they really bond well. And the mom is actually working secretly on a project at a military base, and it is different paints that have different powers, and they're supposed to be used for warfare, but Ashley ends up getting a hold of the briefcase and thinks it's a birthday gift for herself, and
Okay.
she gets shot in the face with an activator, and then each paint has different superpowers. So she has like 32 paints, and you can have different combinations of powers, but you can only use 3 at a time, or else she overloads. Because if she could do more than 3 paints at a time, boy, that'd be a hard story to tell, because then you'd be like invincible. So we had to do
Right.
something. We had to put a roadblock in place at some point. And she's very funny, kind of a Buffy sense of humor, kind of sarcasm, witty, no nonsense. It's very me and my ex-husband's personality coming from the animated space. This ended up happening at the beginning. No, it started before the pandemic. It actually,
Okay.
we got separated. We were separated when we created this together, which is great, because that's probably why it worked out. I've joked about that before, which is like the reason why it's successful is because we weren't living in the same house. So obviously we're amicable, and and I had a friend, Michelle Wells, who's an amazing executive, and I pitched it to her. She's like, "This is awesome," and then Jim Lee approved it, and I guess they were like, it was kind of a no-brainer, I guess, because it was like they loved the idea. It's a new character in the DC universe, and that rarely happens, to allow like an original character like that to come in new to DC. So it's we have high hopes for her for the future, and the first book did really, really well, and all ages seem to love it. The first book is just it came out June 23rd, 2020, which is literally the worst possible time it could have freaking came out, because we had to cancel the entire book tour. Everything was shot. It was done. And despite that, I think we're in our 8th or 9th printing, maybe even 10th at this point.
Yeah, that's where I read it was about 8 or 9, I think. So.
Yeah. So grateful. People found it, and it's been like in the top 3 on Amazon for like 4 years. And then we have a new book. It's the second book that just came out, called Clashing Colors, and that just came out in November, and that's with the Teen Titans are in this book. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, but the reason people should buy it is because it's funny, it's all ages, and our artist Gretel Lusky is amazing. Like it's really fun artwork. It's so expressive. It's just fun. It's fun.
Yeah. I'll in all honesty, I did not even know about it till today, so I have not read it yet.
Okay.
So this was something that I found today. I was like, oh, I really have to ask her about that, because I was so focused on some of the things that you've done behind screen in your producing life and writing life, that I had not noticed that you were also a graphic novelist. So I apologize for not taking a look at the book sooner.
No,
but
it's okay.
Yeah, but no, it's on my order list, because it's it looks really very cool. And I was kind of perusing some of the reviews, and I always say in this day and age, if you can get a review on anything written that's above a 4-star, you might as well have a 5. And and what I see of it on both Amazon and Goodreads is very highly rated. So
yeah, like I haven't seen almost anything under 4 mostly. So like
it's very highly rated. And so I looked at that and I was like, I'm going to check that out, because I think it's also, my daughter just turned 18, and I think that's something that she would really enjoy. She loves female superhero driven stories, so yeah, I'm very excited to share that with her.
It. I'm curious.
I will, absolutely, for sure. All right. Yeah. So guys, if you haven't had a chance to check out Primer and the follow-up book, Clash of Colors, those are both available now, and we'll make sure that there's a link for both down below. I'm excited to read also for the collab with the Teen Titans. I think that's a very cool idea. So I love Teen Titans. That'll be a lot of fun.
And it's gorgeous too. And we have, so part of our artist broke her hand, and so half the book is done by Gretel, and the second half of the book is done by Nicoletta Baldari. She's an Italian artist, but we tried to marry that as blended as seamlessly together. But it's a little bit thicker and it's a little bit longer, but the Teen Titans are a perfect match for primer in this book, and you'll just have to see. You'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. I think the thing that I'm most excited about is that there's the 32 colors and the 3 combinations and how you can use those combinations. And I think that's a really ingenious idea. So I'm actually very excited about that little thing. So, all right. So now you have been a part of shows that both I and the rest of the crew here on FSF have enjoyed thoroughly. I already mentioned Star Trek Prodigy, of course, Star Wars Forces of Destiny, and my co-host Kathleen is a huge Vox Machina fan, like slightly obsessed, perhaps.
I get it. Yep.
But we wanted to focus on Star Wars Forces of Destiny for a moment because I have a daughter, Kathleen has a daughter, and it was very important to both of us that there's this show that focuses on the female heroes of Star Wars. These heroes from the galaxy far, far away, but both showing them in both being amazing in both big and small things. Because a lot of times in Star Wars, especially in the movies or other things, we're only seeing them at their height, what they're doing. Here they have to be this amazing person to catch our attention. How important is it for you to be part of a show that and focuses on both the small and the large aspects of their personalities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was important, and it was of its time too, in terms of, I started writing that in 2016, and it came out in 17, and Star Wars has definitely grown since then. I mean, look at all the live action stars now. So back then, though, there weren't even a lot of female writers. I mean, thank God Carrie Beck, who was the producer and creator of this with Dave Filoni, thank God she had a huge hand in this, and and of course Kathleen runs the company. So I mean, there's women in behind the scenes, but in terms of writers, there weren't tons of female writers yet, and there weren't a lot of female stories yet. Now there's so much more after that. But in 16, 17, it was really early on, and I think it was so nice to see. It's the small moments. It was the in between moments. It was kind of cutscenes in a lot of the movies, which is great. But it was from the point of view of Maz Kanata, and it was nice to tell small little short stories. They were supposed to be a little longer than they were. We wrote them a little longer than they ended up being, but we wanted to tell a lot of them. I think we have maybe 25 of them or something like that. It was a really unique piece of Star Wars.
Yeah, because I think one of the nice things about it is, even though they are essentially shorts, is that these hold up really well, even with we're talking 8 years later from their release. They're still holding up. They still have a lot of importance. And I think too, so my daughter's 18, Kathleen's daughter's 5. And so she's able to watch. We're talking from 2 very different aspects and points of view. So I have a daughter who's looking at female heroes, as somebody that to not necessarily to look up to, but to have a vantage point of this is what a female representation can look like,
right?
And an equitable female representation. And then you have Kathleen's daughter, who's 5 and is looking at these with the, oh, this person's really cool, Mama. Look, look what she can do. Which when my daughter was 5, that was very important to me to have her be able to watch things, because I wanted my daughter to grow up with her own set of heroes. Like I had Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. I wanted her to have her own set where she could look at that and go, look there, Mama, look what Padme's doing. Look what Sabine's doing. Look at what Rey's doing. And so Kathleen's daughter has an opportunity to do that. And so I think that's one of the very nice things about Forces of Destiny, is that not only does it hold up, but it allows for representation on, I think, on both sides of the age spectrum, you know.
I'm so glad. That's so funny because she's 18. So at the time she was what, 10 or so.
Yeah.
And so, did she watch, and she watched them back then, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, well, kids in my house kind of got force fed Star Wars. So,
well, but at 5, like,
Daddy likes it here. You're going to like it too. So.
But at least at 5 years old right now, then, like, at least there's the skeleton crew, and like there's and there's other like there's even more than there was back then.
The young Jedi now. And
yes, and I'm so grateful that Forces Nessie was there. So that was a good start. It was a good start, and I'm glad now there's even more to add to that. But I'm glad they hold up. That's great. I haven't seen them in a while. I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, it's so I have this long standing tradition with Star Wars. I'm always watching something Star Wars. I start off at beginning of chronological order, watch it all the way through to the end. Movies and television shows all kind of wrapped up in there. And so I always kind of choose to watch Forces of Destiny somewhere between the end of the original trilogy before the new trilogy starts.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, so it's that way, because you have interactions between people from the original trilogy, the Clone War era, but who have made it up to the the sequel trilogy, and so there's some interactions there, like between Sabine and Leia, and there's you're seeing stories about Ahsoka. Yeah. So there's some really great stories in there, and they're shorts, but they're powerful. And I think, especially for the younger age group, it's great because those length of episodes keep their attention, and they're not drifting off into, oh golly, what's shiny over here, because
That's actually a really good point. I forgot about the shorts aspect of it. It is kind of, they're digestible, and you're onto the next one. You're like, oh, that's cool. And they're all pretty different. I mean, the look is all very uniform, but obviously the stories are so and it also completely different time periods in the in the Star Wars universe. So that's great. I'm glad.
Yeah, a lot of ways for people to be able to dip their toes into the Star Wars universe without really having to try much.
Awesome. And I'm so glad to hear that. That's awesome.
Awesome. Great. All right. So one of the things that I saw that you are tied to, and I'm assuming that there's going to be a large NDA attached to this. So we're going to nip around the outside of it as much as we humanly possibly can without getting you into the litigious, gooey center. So, all right. So one of the things I'm most excited about is I'm looking at the schedule coming up on Netflix for Stranger Things, and that's coming. And also the announcement of the Stranger Things animation. I am excited about one of the things I love about animated stories, and I'll relate this back to Star Wars, is that the animated series of Clone Wars made the prequel series much more understandable, and a much nicer way to kind of get into the characters, because you weren't just seeing them in little snippets. You were getting these awesome stories that were secondary to the main stories, but very much tied in. And I'm kind of hoping that that's maybe where Stranger Things animation is going, or can do the same type of thing for Stranger Things. We've had a really great run with Stranger Things, but also the kids who play the roles of the characters are also going to start aging out here pretty soon, where it's going to be hard to believe them as middle school and high schoolers. So, but the great thing about animation is that those characters can be lovingly frozen in time. So
they can, yes.
Yeah. So inside of the great four walls of your NDA, which I'm sure is attached,
yes,
I'm hoping you can explain to us in whatever detail you can what the structure of the show is going to be like. When is it possibly heading to Netflix, and what is your role with the upcoming series?
Well, I mean, my role was developed by, so I developed it with obviously Netflix and the runner Eric Robles. I was the head writer of that, and I guess story editor technically, which is that's the animation equivalent of like I mean, it's the head writer. It's like it's so weird.
Sure.
Live titles are different than animation titles, but so yeah, that was 2.5 years of my life, maybe almost 3 years of my life, and I mean, I obviously I can't say much, unfortunately, because they'll
Understood.
find you and murder you. But
That's the way it works. Yeah.
what's nice is it's a bigger world to play in than people think. Now, whether it's the original characters or other new characters, or depending on
Mm-hmm.
the time period, there's a I think what the basis is the nostalgia and the horror elements that make it the Stranger Things, what's the word, I guess, signature.
Okay.
And it's gonna feel Stranger Things, and it's gonna have that signature, and I'm hoping it's I mean, I don't it could be 2026. I mean, it might be end of 2025, but I think live action Stranger Things just announced that it was in 2025. I think they just
Correct.
yeah, I just think they just talked about that. So, animation is a long process. That's the thing. And so
Yes, it
there's
is.
delays because of strikes and things, and things got pushed and things got moved around and things got shifted. So, I think our original timeline I think was a little sooner, but I think it's a little longer now. And also we are careful to, obviously with 21 Laps and Upside Down Pictures and Netflix and everyone involved, to figure out what the best time when's the best time to drop that. But they're always there. I mean, they come first. Hey, whatever they want to do. If they want to put it before, if we're ready, I'm not sure if we are, or after, totally up to them. Unfortunately, I can't say much, but it is, if, I mean, it's gonna absolutely feel like the Stranger Things universe, and you're not gonna be like, what the hell is this? It's not that kind of thing. Like, because I'm picky that way. Like,
Good. Yeah.
I'm really happy with it, and I think it's gonna be really cool. I mean, I helped write the pilot episode, and well, I wrote the pilot episode. God, this is so long ago now. It's amazing because animation takes so long. So it's like, oh my God, I remember when I wrote that. And I'm happy. I'm happy with the way that's turning out. So I can
Awesome.
speak to that. And
Fair enough.
yes, yeah. So that's about as much as I can say, except that I'm picky that way. And you've seen my other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be surprised if people are disappointed in its Stranger Thingsness.
I think that's a fair answer and a fair direction to take that response. Like I said, I didn't want to get you in any trouble with the NDA, but yeah, it's one of the things I think I look forward to the most. Like I said, other than the fact that there's the ability to take these stories in different directions, and tie it into the original series. One of the things I look forward to with this one in particular, and you mentioned it, is the horror aspect.
Yeah.
Because now, granted, I'm not a huge horror fan, but I love Stranger Things.
Right.
And I think mainly for me, it's more of a the mindset of how it works. It gets in your head, and you got to it is scary at moments, and it has made me pause the TV and kind of go, "Ooh, all right,
Yep.
I got
and
the
it stays
vapors."
True.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. See how that translates to animation.
You'd
Which
be
I think
surprised.
I have absolute faith that it can be done, because I think a lot of the reasons I feel that way is that we've talked to so many people in animation over time, and I've watched other things that you can have that tenseness to it, even though it's animated. Like we were talking about Onyx Equinox has its very tense moments.
Yes.
And a lot of that gets set up too by the music choices and everything else. And
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to seeing how that all comes together for Stranger Things with its, and I think you said it nicely, with its Stranger Thingsness. We'll see.
I think it doesn't shy away.
All right. So, well, that's I think that's probably the perfect answer and the perfect place to leave that, so we can both stay innocent and out of the Netflix spotlight.
Perfect.
So. All right, so Jennifer, I really enjoyed talking with you today, but one of the things I always, when I'm enjoying a conversation, one of the things I realize is there's just not enough time to talk about everything that you have done. And guys, there is so much more that Jennifer has done, and just go check out her resume on IMDb. You will be going, oh, I knew I enjoyed that for a reason. I'm going to go watch that one now. And there's a
Awesome.
lot of stuff out there. But one of the things I distinctly wanted to talk about today, and you mentioned it briefly in your intro and the how you got here. Um, but I want to know about your musical past. Now, your bio on your website says that you were part of an all-girl rock band. You said that fell apart after 9/11.
Yes.
And your bio says, part of that was that you found your love for writing. So, I guess what I want to know is, who were your musical influences and what was your band name?
Okay, well, my band name, well, not my band name. The band I joined was called Sympathetic Magic, and they were all
Okay.
female, kind of, they had a very Wiccan vibe, and it was pretty damn heavy. I mean, I'm not gonna say it was metal, but it was like Three Doors Down meets a hint of Metallica meets, it was hard rock, late
Okay.
90s, early 2000s. And they were amazing. I wasn't as amazing. They were amazing musicians, but my influences growing up, though, I mean, the Beatles were the hugest influence of my life.
Okay.
Absolutely. And Paul McCartney specifically, like he's my god. I played left-handed
Fair.
bass because of him. I'm already left-handed. I played left-handed bass because of him, but him being a lefty was very inspiring as a left-handed.
Sure. Yeah.
And I always played music by ear. My original instrument was piano. But I also but I also grew, and as I got, I started in like big band and jazz early on, but when I went to college, it got even more so into the standards and Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald, and and my jazz has
Nice.
got
Yeah.
more and more. So jazz is a huge influence on me. The Beatles are huge influence on me. Prog rock is a big influence on me. Actually, heavy metal is a
Okay.
big. I'm a hair band girl. Can't
No,
can't hide
I
that
get
fact.
it.
So I do love my hair band music, and yeah, and I originally wanted to go to school for film scoring, but I couldn't read. I play by ear. And back in the 90s, 2000s, I think it was really classical. The classical way to do it was was more prevalent than now, which is MIDI, and there's a lot more equipment to help you with that, to
Sure.
overcome that.
Okay.
And back then it was really early days, and it was a roadblock for me. And so, but I also loved creating
Okay.
Bibles and creating stories, and I'd write my own music to like my own like stories and stuff like that. So, I've still played with it over the years, but it's gotten less and less since I've gotten less and less time. So, hope that answers that question.
It does. It does. So,
Okay.
do you still play bass, or just for funsies, or?
Just for funsies, yeah. And I'll play piano once in a while. I'm really rusty because it's been a while, but so I'll like look up something and go, oh, I'd love to learn this little piece. So once in a while, I'll put something on like Instagram or something. But I miss it. I should do it again. It'd
Okay.
be really fun. It'd be fun to play with people too. I mean, as long as I can repeat anything I can hear. Like I can play anything I hear. So as long as I can hear it a bunch of times and practice it, I can get it down. So, but if you ask me to read it, I'm
All
screwed.
right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I can't do either. I can't. But so yeah, I totally understand that. All right. All right, Jennifer. It is time for our silly question. Now, if
Okay.
Kathleen was here, she would tell you that the reason why we do this is that because she was out with her daughter one afternoon, like we mentioned before, who's about 5, possibly 6, possibly 6. Anyway, they were out and about, and somebody asked her daughter this question, but not her. And we thought there should never be a time when this question isn't asked of an adult.
Oh,
We don't know how you age out of this question, but apparently
okay.
you do. So, Jennifer Muro, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh. Wow, I didn't expect that. Um, oh, God. I mean, I like velociraptors.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah, I really do. I like Dilophosaurus as well, but velociraptors are just, I mean, that's amazing. Maybe it's the Flintstones in me. I don't know. Maybe it's growing up. That was like a thing. But yeah, good question. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Now I got to think deeper.
Awesome.
Those are my top 2 off the top of my head. But other than that, now I got to look deeper into dinosaurs and like, just in case there's a better one out there I don't even realize. So I appreciate
You mentioned earlier too that Jurassic Park was an influence on you. And I was like,
yeah.
it's like, we might have a good chance at a really cool answer today. All right.
Yeah,
you're only one of like, I think out of all the people we've asked this. Yeah. Out of all the people we've asked that question, I think we've only had probably, I think you're only the 3rd or 4th person to say Velociraptor. So.
Okay. Anyone say Dilophosaurus?
Yeah.
They did?
No, I don't think so. I think you're the first.
Okay. So there you go. That's
No, I think
50-50.
Yeah. On the Dilophosaurus, I think you're the first. So, all right. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you, your work, and what you have upcoming?
You can go to jenmuro.com. That's my website. But I'm on Instagram. I'm not on X really too much anymore. I'm on Bluesky. Instagram is official Jennifer Muro. On Bluesky, it's just Jennifer Muro. On X, I'm still there because we not tons, but a lot of the Star Trek stuff is on there still, and that's also just at Jennifer Muro. And those are pretty much the places. Yeah, you can, especially Instagram. That's probably the most, just because it's just photos. It's just pretty photos, and that's the only thing I can handle social media wise, because like my brain is going to blow up. I can't handle anything else. So yeah, Instagram's your best bet. Yeah,
fair enough. We'll make sure to put those social media links down in there in the down below, and we'll also put, like I said, we're going to have links for your primer graphic novels, and we'll put those down there below as well. All right, guys, if you haven't caught on yet, this is the best time for you to know that subscribing is the most important thing you can do to help our show continue to grow. Get great interviews with really cool folks like Jennifer Muro to come on and be on the show and have a few moments for you guys to be able to listen to and enjoy. So if you haven't already, please subscribe here on YouTube and check us out over on Bluesky at FSF Popcast. It helps more than you'll ever really realize. And be sure to go check out Jennifer's work as well. You're going to want to check out Primer. I can't wait to get my own copy to be able to read that. It's going to be very, very exciting for everyone. So on that note, Jennifer, thank you for being on the show. Everyone, thank you for listening in. And may the force be with you as you continue to live long and prosper.
Copyright 2025 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpopcast.com.